seconds and counting.
Hey, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to another video. It's Anish. I'm joined with E, and today we're joined by a very special guest, the man who makes Rockets games more entertaining when you go in person. His name is Jonathan Sanford, the Rockets PA announcer. Jonathan, before we go ahead and start, I just want to ask you, could you give us your best Rockets pregame introduction? Maybe just like the beginning of it. Just like give us a little sample of how it sounds like.
Let's see. And now, let's meet your Houston Rockets.
Wow, that was so.
Yeah,
Oh my God, that got me. I got chills right now.
that's pretty cool to hear in person, like live. You know, this is the closest I've got to hearing
With
it
no
so
warm
far.
up. That's the toughest.
I
thing.
know.
No
I put you
warm-up.
on the spot there.
Oh,
Thank you
that's-
so much for really taking me up on that.
No problem.
But yeah, so we're just gonna go ahead and get started. Ask you a few questions about how it was like being a PA announcer, and just like some questions about the Rockets. Nothing too deep. So I just want to ask you, how did you kind of get into PA announcing, and like who or what inspired you?
Well, you got to go back into the early 90s. For me, it was the opportunity to see guys featured in the NBA. P announcers really weren't that featured in the NBA in the 80s. And then with the Chicago Bulls and Ray Clay and the intro sequence for the Chicago Bulls there, if you ever get a chance to watch that back on YouTube, it really caught my attention, grabbed my imagination. The thought of being a part of something like that really hit me in my heart in a special way. And for me, that was just the drive that kind of lit the fire, light the fuse. I was last season for me in terms of wanting to be a PA announcer, because I wanted to experience what that guy got to experience right there with 18,000 plus fans in a moment like that.
yeah, that's pretty cool. I never got to actually see the Chicago Bulls more from
It's
just like
awesome.
the
Go
last
on
pretty
YouTube
much.
and check it out. I think you'll understand more about what I'm speaking of. You know, that was such a cool sequence, and it was new. You know, now I think most people that are involved in NBA have seen an NBA intro sequence. They kind of know what to expect. But back then, Chicago, that particular situation was just so new to us that it really grabbed our attention, especially as a young teenager.
Yeah, it's the same thing as like the clips they show in The Last Dance, right? Or is it a completely different intro sequence or introduction sequence?
Say it one more time.
Is it the completely same thing they put on The Last Dance, the documentary from Michael Jordan?
Yes,
Like, are the same intro?
in fact, they actually you heard Ray Clay's voice in there from that particular is it ESPN series, The Last Dance. Is that correct?
It's on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's an ESPN series or. Yeah, so should we just move on to my next question, or the first question is, so we've seen that Jabari didn't really like his nickname, the Agent Smith nickname. So have you like,
What is? I haven't even heard this. This is something that came across my Twitter last night, and I wasn't even familiar with it. What was the nickname that someone gave him?
so
Agent.
Rocket Twitter collectively, yeah, we agreed that the nickname is going to be Agent Smith from The Matrix,
Yeah.
and he didn't really like that. Apparently, he didn't really like that nickname.
So has Jabari heard this nickname?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
But, like,
said,
y'all gotta stop that. Like, nah.
Oh, so
Like,
he
was like,
didn't buy it, huh?
no, he didn't buy it. I think he just wants people to call him Bari, I guess, like as a nickname or something. But
Well, listen, I'm okay with Bari and Tari. I've heard that a few times already. But you know, it's kind of like I said last night on Twitter. A lot of that kind of stuff happens organically. You know, especially early on in the season. We saw that last season with, of course, the situation with Gary Bird. Um, those things happen organically, and when they do, they seem to catch on pretty quick. And so, you know, who knows what'll catch on?
yeah, that's actually like my next question is, do you have any suggested nicknames for Bari or Tari or Tai Tai Washington?
Well, Jackson Gatlin said he'd like to see Bari and Tari on a connection, a situation where a player, you know, makes the basket and then you have the connection, the assist. I'm going to just play it by ear. You know, I've really only seen these guys in college. once you see these guys in person and you see their personality on and off the court, stuff like this really comes out a lot easier. So I'm going to wait and see kind of what I see early in the season before I start to come up with nicknames.
And I just
Okay,
wanted
okay,
to ask
perfect.
you, and I just wanted to ask you, like, were there any like nicknames other than like the one you mentioned, Gary Bird, that you saw on Twitter and that you like, I guess, used? And like, do you? I mean, yeah, just like kind of like that. Have you like seen any on
Well,
Twitter and be like, God, it's for
last season it was obvious with Jay Sean Tate. Every time you do that little pirouette in the basket and score, that little twist, circle button, as some people like to call it in football. We just came up with the Texas tornado because he would go in the lane there like that and spin and put the basket in. And so midway through the season, we started calling him the Texas tornado, Jay Sean Tate. Of course, I think this predates me a little bit, but Splash Gordon, Flash Gordon, Splash for whenever Gordon makes a three, and then Flash, of course, whenever he flashes in the lane and puts it in. So those were a few last year that we used that came about throughout the season, not just me sitting down one day and going, "Hey, I want to call these guys this." No, it was kind of more organic things that kind of developed as the season went on.
It's pretty cool to know how like the nicknames develop as the season goes. You pick
Yeah,
up
I mean,
nicknames from here, pick up
you
names from
guys.
here.
Let me say this: you guys, as Rockets Twitter, are responsible for a lot of that. I mean, last year, and I forget the gentleman's name on Twitter that was responsible for Garrison Matthews, the nickname Gary Bird. But I mean, that caught on, and I remember hearing that uh, on the TV broadcast and the radio broadcast, and I finally joined in on the PA side. And again, whoever that was special for them because that was a nickname I think that Garrison Matthews enjoyed as the season went on.
Yeah, it's even on Basketball Reference, and he even went to like meet Gary Bird. So it's pretty cool experience and just something pretty cool to come up with.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, just going back to the PA announcing, like, what is like a typical day in the life of a PA announcer? Like, do you have to take any preparation before each game, or like, is it like later on in the season everything's kind of like already worked out, so it's like kind of like a breeze, or like, how is it like being a PA announcer in your day to day life?
Well, I am one of the people that get to the arena the earliest because I really feel like it's important to be prepared in every aspect, to have every I dotted and every T crossed before every game. And so I usually get to the arena about 3:30 on a game day. Let's say it's a 7 p.m. tip. I'm there by 3 or 3:30. I get down courtside, set up all of my equipment. I do everything paperless, so I have a couple of iPads that I use to keep all of my stats on. I set all that stuff up. I go in and make some hot tea. I sit down and begin to work through the rosters and double check everything that I've already prepared before I get to the arena in terms of player names and pronunciations and all of that good stuff. And then have team meetings that go on a little bit later on in that evening before the game. And then by about say 5:30, 5:45, then it's kind of game mode. Then you're on from there, and you're getting ready for pregame reads and what will then eventually be intros, etc. But I think a lot of that preparation, guys, ends up happening at home when you are sitting in your office and you're going through all the names and making sure you have all the pronunciations correct and showing up prepared is a big deal, but also being there and being alert and visiting with the PR guys from the various teams across the league just to make sure you have all your information correct is a very important part of what we do. Um, and also just spending some time with the fans. Anybody that's come to the Toyota Center uh, knows that I'm going to try to find time for the fans before the games and even after the games. So that's also a big part of my time there on game day.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the pregame routine, and I'm just gonna ask you like the question that's been on my mind for a while. Is you were doing the pregame routines on Twitter when you were going
Yeah.
live for the pregame announcements. I'm just questioning, will you be bringing it back for next season?
Yeah, we'll do it from time to time next season. That's always been a fun thing for me. I've done that for years. And it just gives people a little bit of an inside view as to what we do that maybe they don't get to see otherwise. So yeah, we'll bring that back at some point this next season.
I just wanted to ask you, like, during like when it was peak COVID times for the NBA, like, how was it like being a PA announcer? I guess when fans were involved, or it was very limited. Is that how did that like that COVID? How did that affect your job and how did it affect you?
Well, I was with the San Antonio Spurs pre-COVID, and then during the initial part of COVID in 2020, I was not in the league at that point, and so 2020 and part of 21, I really didn't have to experience what guys like Matt Thomas and Roland Ruiz, Lawrence Tanner, all the different PA guys across the league that they had to deal with. I've spoken with them. I know what it's like for them in those situations. But when I came aboard, we were still kind of in the COVID situation. It was one of the biggest challenges. I'll just be honest with you, was wearing a mask while announcing because anybody that's a PA announcer, they use a lot of air. You push a lot of air, and having that mask there kind of muffles that air and that movement of air. So you felt kind of choked a little bit in a sense with that mask on, but we all adapted and found ways to uh, use that situation and actually mask choice and finding the right type of mask, the breathable type mask was an improvement as time went about. So that was certainly a big thing. And by the end of last season, I got the opportunity to take off the mask, and man, it felt so good to finally have that mask off and announce it at full tilt, and hopefully the fans can see a difference in that for most of the guys around the league. Most of the PA guys I've talked to, they're so glad to have that mask off and hoping that this pandemic will continue to be on a downslide so that we can go in there full tilt this coming fall.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Spurs and you were with the Spurs, which brings me to my next question: is what was it like being a PA announcer in the finals, like the NBA finals?
It was a childhood dream come true, really. For me, I remember walking in that arena, the first game, number one of the finals, and stopping at the base of the tunnel and just looking up. And the Rockets know this when you're in playoff presentation mode, you've got the T-shirts out on all the seats, and there's a lot of work that goes on to make that happen. But when I walked through that tunnel that first night, looking up and looking around, and you had ESPN and ABC there, it just felt big time. Everything about this league is big time. Even a regular season game is big time. But then there's just that upper echelon, that notch that you feel in intensity go up as the playoff series go forward. You get in the Western Conference Finals, and then the finals. That is the pinnacle. So for me, it was all these years of preparation and hoping and finally coming into fruition there at that moment as I walked through that tunnel and realized, this was going to be a fun night.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, was there like a moment this season that was like extremely like fun, like announcing as it happened, I guess? Like, was there any moment like in any game this season that was like, oh my God, this is happening, and then this is happening, or I don't know, like, was there any moment that stood out to you this season?
Oh yeah, during the Lakers game when I got the text that said, "Take off your mask. You can take off your mask and go for it." And the second half of that game was just fantastic. The overtime period, just lighting up the arena with threes and just killing my voice at the top of my lungs just because of the threes that were raining at the in that overtime period. That'll be my favorite moment from last season for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure you know this, but when they make a three, a lot of us at home are also shouting three in the same way you're shouting it. So we're just getting as fired up. We're just not
Listen,
there.
as you may have to take over for me because as I'm getting older, man, that's a hard call to make, slurring that up from the low level all the way up to the high range. And but I enjoy the heck out of it, and adrenaline plays a great part in that. So once you get that adrenaline going, ain't no stopping me now.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt none of any of us are doing it as good, but we're just like putting it in the same feeling, the same emotion as you are.
I love it. That means a lot
Yeah,
to me. You have no idea how much that means to me. Thank you.
yeah, and it's like it perfectly brings me to my next question: is everyone wants to see the big names like Jalen Green and Jabari Smith in the finals. So just how exciting would it be if the Rockets were to make the finals with you as the PA announcer, knowing that you grew up pretty much with these guys as well? Like you watched them grow to the finals.
That would feel even greater than what I experienced in 2014 because you just hit it. When you watch a player grow, and Houston, they can truly understand this. Look at the run the Astros are on right now, and you as a city have watched those guys from young kids develop into the men that they are right now, and just doing such a fantastic job. When you get to watch player development from the ground up and then see them walk out of that tunnel for the first time, like I did in 2014 in its NBA Finals, that will feel even greater just because it's a journey and it's a culmination of that journey. And so for these guys, I truly believe they're going to get there. I truly believe it, and I look forward. I hope I live long enough and am blessed enough to be a part of this organization to be able to witness that, because it's going to be a fantastic feeling.
And speaking of the Rockets roster, I just want to know your overall thoughts on like the Rockets' future, your thoughts on like the draft. I saw that you gave it like an A+ grade. Could you maybe elaborate on that and like your perspective on the Rockets' future so far?
Well, just going back to what we saw last season and the development of the players that we witnessed last season, you take that development, that work ethic that we saw that last season with several of the guys, and then you combine that with the guys that they've gotten in the draft this year, uh, Jabari Smith, Eason, Ty Ty. The work ethic on those three guys alone, you add that, the chemistry I think is going to be off the charts this year for the Rockets, and that work ethic is going to be even greater this year. So as I said, my draft grade was an A+ because I felt like it went as well as it could have possibly gone for the Houston Rockets. So going into this next season, the combination of last year's roster, those who are still with us, and these new guys that are going to develop with us, it's going to be a fun year.
Yeah, I have a bit of a random question, but it's like it's a fun one. So, has there ever been a time where a player approached you pregame and he was like curious to what you do, or would he like to take a shot at it? And if they
I've
were,
had a
would you like
couple.
allow
Yeah,
them
it's
to?
a cool question because I've had a couple players come up and be like, "How do you do that? Do you use a voice changer?" That's probably the number one question I get from players or fans. Hey, Jonathan, do you use a voice changer? How do you get your voice to do that? And I'm like, no, you can see it's just a standard microphone. And I love it when the players come up and like, can I come around there and sit down and try this? And whenever they do, I've had even away players come up, players for other teams in the league come up and before a game and ask to sit down and let me show them how to do what I do. So that's pretty cool. Um, we had a Hall of Fame Lakers player from many years ago who's now a coach, was a coach in the WNBA, come up before a game and talk to me, and that was a Hall of Fame Lakers player. I mean, that was pretty cool for me for him to sit down and ask me about what I do.
I just wanted to ask you, were there like any like funny moments like that you've gotten like with the players like that you wanted to share, or like what like do you ever get to meet the players like either before the games or like after the games, like what's your interaction level with the players on the roster?
I'm blessed to be able to get to know them throughout the season. But you asked kind of one of the funniest moments. One of the funniest moments ever for me was going back several years ago when Patty Mills, who was then with the San Antonio Spurs, was chasing after a loose ball and came right over the top of the table into my lap. So thankfully, it was Patty Mills and not Tim Duncan or Boban Marjanovic. It was Patty Mills. But it was still pretty, whenever a player comes over the table into your lap, it gets your attention pretty quick. But I just remember looking down and being like, whoa, this just happened. And he's apologizing. And I'm like, no, you did your job. And I had to clean up because everything was just kind of knocked all over the place. But that's one of my favorite memories just because it happened so unexpectedly. And I wasn't hurt, and neither was a player. Just kind of like, you can't get any more up close and personal with a player than that, let me tell you.
Yeah, you just mentioned Bobby, which brings me perfectly to my next question. Boban Marjanovic.
Yeah.
How excited are you to meeting him this season? Just like the energy he brings.
Listen, I go back with Boban, and I don't know if he'll be with us this year or not. If he is, I'm just going to be overjoyed because he is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, both on the court and off the court. Is a great representative of whatever organization he's a part of. So, if he ends up with us in Houston this year, I will be excited because there's always something with Boban that going to put a smile on your face. I remember several years ago, my wife was going through cancer, and Boban just had a way of saying the right thing at the right time to put a smile on your face. So big props to Boban and wherever he ends up this coming season.
Yeah, I always say, like, if you make Boban mad, you're definitely doing something wrong. Like, there's
I
no
did you
way.
did you see that earlier this past or this postseason? Did you guys see that with Boban
Yeah.
getting angry? And I forget who it was he was angry with, but if you make him angry, there's something to that.
Yeah, and I also wanted to ask you kinda like, just like how it is like for your career, like what would you say is the hardest part of your job? Like, is there anything that you could change about it or
I'll put it to you like this. I don't know if this exactly answers your question the way you'd want it, but listen, there are always going to be butterflies. Where every game, there are butterflies, but it's not a bad thing. In fact, I've told PA guys this around the league. If ever you sit down behind that microphone for a game and there's no butterflies, you need to get up and walk because there's a certain sense of responsibility that goes in with that. That you better have a little bit of nerves going into it because you want to perform at your very best. You want to give your very best each and every game. For me, the challenge is making every game even a greater experience for the fans and for the players than the previous game. It doesn't matter what's on the scoreboard. Doesn't matter the score, the final score of the game. What matters is how well you've done your job behind that mic, giving the fans something that they're going to want to come back for again, whether it's that three call that you mentioned or some other aspect of what we do. I want to give fans something to have a memory about that years later that they can talk about. Hey, you remember when this happened, or the call that was made on this situation. So hopefully, when it's all said and done, whenever my career is wrapped up or my name is written on a tombstone somewhere, somebody will have a good memory and say, "Hey, I remember this," and that was a special moment for them.
Yeah, that's like for me. I still remember the Lakers game you mentioned because it was just like 5 a.m., 4 a.m. for me, and I was just jumping up and down like we won a playoff series. But in reality, it was just like a regular season game.
So, where is home for you, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay, so for that game, I was in Jordan, which is 8 hours ahead of
Yep,
Houston.
that's right. Wow, man,
Yeah,
thank you for your loyalty for that. That's amazing.
I mean, I enjoy doing it. Like a lot of the people call me like I don't know, psycho or something. I enjoy doing it, staying up, watching Rockets games.
It's interesting. You speaking of being in Jordan for that game. A lot of people. And yes, there were a large contingent of international fans in San Antonio, but I've been just blown away with the contingent of international fans for the Houston Rockets and their loyalty and their dedication to this team and their activity on Twitter and social media. A great representation of this entire organization from an international standpoint. And we love the folks that are fans across the entire world who represent this organization so well. So thank you for that.
I just wanted to ask you, like, have you like, what's your relationship like with the play-by-play announcers, Craig Ackerman and Ryan Hollins? Have you gotten to meet with them? Like pre-game, do you guys like kind of like not strategize, but like just like discuss back and forth what to say? I guess I know it's like a different experience, like in game, like in the audience versus like kind of what like say like the and AT&T Sports Network or whatever station it is. But like what's it like kind of talking to them? What's your relationship with those guys like?
Well, first of all, Ryan Hollins was hired about the same week that I was hired within the organization. So we came aboard at the same time. I remember one of the cool things about Ryan is he's like myself. He's an early bird. He gets there early. He's always super prepared. If you ever see Ryan Hollins in the arena, he's always going to be dressed perfectly. I can't keep up with that. I told him, I said, listen, I cannot compete with your level of dress. So Ryan is one of those guys that's always there on time. He's always early. He's always prepared. He's got his I's dotted, his T's crossed. So I really, really appreciated that meeting him earlier in the offseason, right before the preseason started, and having an opportunity to kind of compare notes. Craig, and I knew in San Antonio, Craig Ackerman was one of the best in the business and was only going to go upward. And now, in the role that he's with, it's a fantastic opportunity for the entire world to see the talent that this guy has. And I think for you as Rocket fans, whether you're watching them at home uh, during a live broadcast or like I do, I go home after a game and I watch the replay. I DVR it. I watch it because these guys have insight that I like to kind of see from time to time. And so Craig and Brian do a fantastic job on the TV side, and of course Matt Thomas. Rockets broadcaster on radio side, just a fantastic job, and I always have a great love for Matt and the job that he did in this city for so many years on that PA mic, and now representing the Rockets over the radio airwaves.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go into my last question here. Is that when you're introducing the away team, most of the time it's just like a normal voice. But have you tried saying it in a more saddened voice or in a voice to demotivate them a little bit, try to get into their head before the
Oh
game?
yeah, it's a lot of gamesmanship, and the cool thing about it, back in 2014, you had Michael Biamonte, who is still the voice of the Miami Heat. And so in that playoff series between the Spurs and the Heat, we took our shots at each other during the away team intros. Whenever I would be introducing the Miami Heat, it was and now introducing the visiting Miami Heat. Just as deadpan and as sullen and somber sounding as you could possibly do. I really love that challenge. I really love the opportunity to try to get in their minds a little bit. And I tell you what, Matt Thomas was known as the master of that. If you could look back to the series of Golden State between the Rockets and the Warriors a few years ago, Matt made headlines with his away team introduction. So all of us in the league have always enjoyed that little bit of gamesmanship and look forward to it whenever we get to announce the opposing team.
And I just want to ask you, like, other than like announcing the Rockets, I know that you also do the announcing for, I believe, UH Cougars, I believe.
Yeah,
Uh,
do UH women, sometimes the
yeah,
men,
UH
depending
women's.
upon the schedules.
Yeah, I also want to ask you, like, have you ever done like any like G League PA announcing or Summer League or even in 2K, the game for NBA? And they recently added PA announcers. Did they already call you up for that, or how's that going? Like, what other opportunities have you been asked to do?
Well, I do all the state championships here in the state of Texas for high school sports, and also some of the fine art events, such as the UIL State Marching Band. So I get to do a lot of announcing and various things there with the UIL. Also, you asked about the G League. Well, back when it was known as the D League, I was a member of what was then known as the Austin Toros. I was the announcer for the Austin Toros for a season, went to a D League championship. So I've had that experience in what's now the G League, of course. Um, let's see. Trying to remember what was part of what else was part of your question now. It's slipping my mind.
Oh, was it like the Summer League? Were you asked to do for the Summer League or the
I
two?
haven't done the summer league. That's one thing I've always wanted to do. I believe it's out in Las Vegas at the Thomas and Mack Center this year. That's always been part of my bucket list. But usually they use a guy that's in the area that I know that has been doing the summer league PA. And then let's see, you mentioned NBA 2K. Yeah, last year was a cool deal because for all of us as PA guys, it's been a dream, especially of mine, for going back to about 1999 when they had the first NBA 2K game on the Sega Dreamcast. I'm probably dating myself a little bit, but from that point forward, I remember thinking, boy, it'd be nice to hear the PA guy in an NBA 2K game. So I know that this had been in works for several years, but with the pandemic, it kind of got delayed a little bit. And then last year, when I wasn't a part of the league and they came out with that announcement, I was like, man, proud for my brothers, proud for my PA brothers out there to be able to be part of the game. And but then this year to be invited to be part of that game, pretty special deal. So I'm looking forward to that, and that'll be coming out later on this year. So you'll see uh, that news as it debuts. Go on.
Were you always a rock? Like, did you grow up? What like team did you grow up?
So I grew up in Alabama, right?
Okay.
And but you remember a certain Rockets player by the name of Robert Ory? Does that ring a bell?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So Robert played at the University of Alabama, and when I was a kid, I got to watch him play basketball. So when he ended up as a Houston Rockets player, and I immediately just became. This is before I'd ever even been to Houston. Uh, just fell in love with the entire environment and watching the Rockets kind of in that situation. Jordan goes to Birmingham, Alabama, to play baseball with the Birmingham Barons, uh, affiliate team of the White Sox there in Chicago. So you kind of had that moment. Jordan steps away, but my love for basketball got even greater because then the Rockets were on the main stage. You had the finals and the championship wins with Robert Ory. So that really lit my spark in terms of the Houston Rockets. And then, honestly, wherever Robert Ory was at, I just continued to follow him. When he was out in LA, I just loved the teams that they had there with Robert Ory. I got to see him hit a game winner in 2002 against the Sacramento Kings, which was a pretty special deal for me. And I know he spent some time in San Antonio at one point in his career. But my greatest love was when he was here in H Town, and so that kind of is kind of full circle that I married a Texan, ended up here in Houston back in 2003, and then one day, uh, cool deal is ended up becoming the voice of the Houston Rockets, which for me is a dream come true.
That's really amazing. Yeah, wow. That's really cool. Like your whole life story right there. Yeah, that's
It's
Yeah,
crazy because I just never would have dreamed it. I mean, you grew up in a small town in Alabama, and I remember my friends because most of my friends back home they were all just into college football because you got University of Alabama, you got Auburn, and I would always be the kid who had the 13-inch TV watching the NBA playoffs, and I would say, "Hey, you want to come over and watch the Seattle Supersonics take on the Phoenix Suns back when you had Sean Kemp and Detlef Schrempf and Gary Payton and Dan Marley and Kevin Johnston and Charles Barkley and I'd be watching that and be like, no, but let's go watch, let's go do this or that. I mean, no, I can't miss this game. I just loved NBA and was one of the only people in my social circle that was really a big NBA fan. So for me, it's just full circle the fact that I'm getting to live that out now. And listen, guys, there's no greater sport to me than the NBA. And yes, I love all the love college football. I love the University of Alabama. I love seeing him win national championships throughout my lifetime. But there's just something about the NBA and the environment that's always hit home with me.
yeah. I mean, we can all agree to that pretty much. It's just different. It's a different vibe when you're watching the NBA, especially in the finals when everything's on the line. Like even this year for the Celtics and the Warriors, I was pretty much fully rooting for the Celtics as
I was
if they
going to
were the
ask you, who are
Rockets.
you rooting for? Because I couldn't help but root for the Celtics because of the head coach there in the Celtics was with me in San Antonio for several years, and cool deal to see him be able to coach in that particular situation. I know that they didn't win, but the future's bright in Boston for those Celtics.
yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely
know. For
the
me, is
first year, that's pretty good. I mean,
Yeah,
to
I mean, talk
almost
about
win the
full
final.
circle. Like, wow, it's got to be amazing feeling. Now, so in San Antonio, there were certain guys and gals. I mean, you had I had the opportunity to also announce the WNBA there. So Becky Hammond. I mean, Becky's now the coach of the Las Vegas Aces. Uh, Brilliant young lady, fantastic basketball player, fantastic mind, going to be a fantastic coach. I believe they started off on a historic run this season, did the Las Vegas Aces. So several players and coaches that I've gotten to know over the years that have done well. So I'm always applauding whenever I see former Rockets players, former Spurs players, or even guys throughout the league that do well transitioning from being a player to a coach and succeeding.
Have you ever wanted to do like a coaching type job? Like, have you ever wanted
No,
to do like,
no, no, no,
play
no, no,
by
no, no.
play or anything or analysis?
Okay, listen, coaching, I'll leave that up to the experts. I've done play by play, I've done color, but there's just something about the intimacy that you get being on a PA mic with 18,000 people, that live response that I don't feel when I'm on a play by play headset or doing color on radio or TV. For me, it's the intimacy with the fans that I really it just gets me, man. 18,000 plus people in an arena. Whenever you make a call and you hear that reaction, I'm that's it for me. That's the heart matter for me. So the others are great, but for me, it's just PA.
yeah, the adrenaline you must get as well
Yeah,
when you just make like
yeah,
a huge call and everyone jumps up with you and everyone's roaring in the crowd.
yeah. I mean, it's the emotion, the adrenaline. I guess I'm an adrenaline junkie, if you want to put it that way, when it comes to PA announcing.
I also want to ask you, like, how's it like during like the advertisement breaks? I guess, like, what do you say? Like, I know there's the dance cams, the kiss cams. Like, do you have fun with like how? Like, I don't know, like how far, like how much fun do you have with all that stuff?
Yeah, that's one of the funniest parts because coming into this gig years ago, I knew about calling the game, but I didn't know that PA guys had all this other responsibility, right? You've got, like you just mentioned, you've got in the situation here in Houston, you have your Clutch City dancers, you have, various other groups there. You have the advertisement reads, you have pregame reads, you have all. So nobody ever told me back before I became an NBA PA guy that there were all these other responsibilities during a game night in terms of announcements. So I remember the first few games I called, looking at that script, and the script was like that tall, and going, "Whoa, is this for the entire season?" They're like, "No, it's for one game." And I was like, "Okay, wow." So that was a bit of a wake up call for me, but I like it. I really like it from the standpoint that it's always a challenge. A lot of those reads I call spot reads. In other words, I've never seen that read before, but I got to read it right now. And I like that challenge. It's probably helped me to be pretty spontaneous and able to react quickly to various reads. So it's a cool challenge for me. I've grown to love it. At first, I was a little bit shocked by it, but I've grown to love it over the years. All the other stuff that I do.
Well, awesome. I think
Sounds good, pretty good.
that's all the questions that we have today. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Is there anything you would like to let the public know about anything you're working on right now, I guess, or where they can find you on Twitter or things like that?
Well, what I'd like to do to close out is thank you guys. This is our first opportunity to get to meet you guys and to speak with you. So I'm going to throw the encouragement to you guys. Keep doing what you're doing and keep representing the Rockets here on social media and keep up the great work. Well, again, thank you guys for what you do. It sounds like you represent the entire city of Houston, like you said, whether you're talking about the Texans, the Astros, the
Mhm.
Rockets, you name it. You guys are covering it. So appreciate you guys doing. No, simply, I just thank you all for your time. Thank you all for Rockets fans for your support over the last season, and now as we go forward into this season, and looking forward to seeing what the Rockets have in store for us as the city of Houston and for the fans all across the world. It's going to be a fun year, and I'm just thankful to be a part of it. Really grateful for your support and for the opportunity to be a part of this family that we call Rockets Nation.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to just like have you on and talk to you as well.